This conference will now be recorded.
All right, good evening, folks. I'm glad you're all here. We're doing a general overview as far as for your final exam. And so just reviewing what we've been going over this past semester, and it's been quite a semester. And I hope that you've really been able to process a lot of information in this short period of time and been able to really study and learn and know this information. So, as we're here, so I'm not going to So I'm going to do something like this. I'm not going to do full slide point because I want to be able to go to specific images and such. So you need to know and review as far as afferent and efferent, right? As far as input and output, right? Those are terms that we use throughout the semester as far as afferent and efferent in this semester as well as last semester. The special senses, you should know what's going on in particular with your special senses as far as your sense of hearing, your sense of vision, and review those, please, in particular. You'll see here as far as our general senses, what does somatic represent? What does visceral represent regarding your senses? This is important too, as far as this terminology here that's on this page. You should know these terms, right? You should know what they represent, okay? All right, let's see here. Let's move on. And so as far as these tonic and phasic receptors, you should know what they represent also and review that. So you have that next slide here as far as talking about how tonic receptors are slow adapting, phasic receptors are fast adapting, and know what they correlate with, please. Adaptation is important, as well as reviewing what's going on as far as pain is concerned. Folks, as we've gone through our anatomy and physiology from part 1 and part 2, we've talked also about, and while we're discussing injuries and while we're discussing pathology and illnesses and such, acute and chronic, and you should be able to determine and give me an understanding of how you know which is different between the acute and chronic and be able to differentiate between them. As far as also the different types of pain that patients can present with, right? Also within this chapter there, really in this beginning PowerPoint, knowing regarding what's going on as far as different areas of the brain and correlating with the different functions of the nervous system. So you should know where these different centers are located, as well as cortices as far as for visual and for olfaction and such, and auditory, and how about regarding as far as a sense of speech, as far as motor speech, and as far as understanding, so Broca's and Wernicke's, right? So we talked about that. We've discussed that ad nauseum. You should also know regarding, so where is what's the significance of the precentral gyrus and the postcentral gyrus, right? You should know that information there and review that. Okay. Yeah, and here you're looking at, and this is giving you as far as motor and sensory and different association areas, very important. As far as reviewing the brainstem and its important functions, also looking over information review regarding sleep as well as memory, okay? And we talked about the limbic system. We talked about the importance of that and really how that, when we think of the limbic system, we think of the emotional brain. Very important. Okay. As far as special senses, so like I said to you all, that I really think it's important for you to review again regarding really recall cranial nerves and their importance and significance with the special senses, and just reviewing and going over as far as what's taking place in general regarding each of these senses. And know that we spend a lot of time looking at your sense of vision and your sense of also your sense of hearing. Okay, so you should review this, and this is a good image right here showing you exactly what's going on as far as, so we have, recall that we have light is refracted, bent to the retina, and then you'll have here these rods and cones, and then we'll have what? We're going to have information transmitting through action potentials through these specific nerve cells, and these ganglion cells will form cranial nerve number 2, the optic nerve. Right? And so please review and go over as far as rods and cones. and important information. You should review pathology. Pathology is important regarding special senses, so please review that and go over that. I always think this is fascinating as far as, that's why I do show you these images to give you an idea as far as, so what is it like, and I feel that this is very important as far as a clinician is concerned, that we all should know as far as clinicians are concerned, what is it like for our patients that are dealing with these certain illnesses that they're struggling with, and that we're involved in trying to manage, and know that even as a chiropractor. So I had patients who had cataracts, I had patients who had macular degeneration and other, so right, so we still, even though my focus was musculoskeletal, right, and affecting the nervous system as far as making corrections to the spine, but know that, your patients are coming to you with multiple diagnoses as far as within your scope of practice. You need to stay within your scope of practice, but know that your patients are going to come to you and suffer with these different other illnesses. And so what is it like, and what does it feel, and what is it as far as the presentation of someone who has cataracts, or someone who is seeing that suffers from macular degeneration? And how can we then know, okay, so we have here as far as their central vision is affected, well, what's being damaged, why they are having issues with their central vision, right? And we know that the macula and the fovea centralis, the bullseye of the macular region, where we have a concentration of cones, and it's for sharp vision, right? So our central vision, our sharp vision, as well as our color vision. So, this is what you should be thinking about when you're thinking about the pathologies and what's going on. So how about here as far as retinitis pigmentosa? And so recall that they have tunnel vision that they're experiencing, right? So their peripheral vision is gone. So it's as if they're looking through, so I'll take my paper towel here, they're looking through this, this tunnel to be able to see. Can you only imagine, right? Seriously, it's just challenging stuff. And as far as, reviewing for your sense of hearing and such, and equilibrium, what's going on with both areas, and here you're seeing as far as, I like this image, it really helps us to get an understanding and realize what's going on as far as what's happening as far as the cochlea is concerned. We see it curled up, but realize if you were just straighten things out, you'd have a better idea as far as you're seeing here, as far as the oval window, as far as the round window, and what's taking place within, and where your sense for your high pitch noise and sound, and your low pitch, and where that's affecting the cochlear duct, and as far as present within the cochlea. So good stuff, right? So you're having other interesting images showing you regarding your sense of balance and equilibrium and hearing. Okay. As far as the different fluids present within the ear, and what's going on as far as, and so really this is a good slide just to remind you all that as you've gone through this course, really you should have a very good working understanding as far as how can age, knowing the anatomy and the physiology of the different body systems that we've covered in 2 semesters, what's taking place as far as if I have an issue as I'm getting older, what can occur with each body system as far as how it can be affected, right? So really important as far as keeping that big picture in mind regarding anatomy and physiology, okay? Oh man, my sinuses are just bugging me today as far as, it's been kind of rough with the pollen, but today is a rough one for me, I don't know why. So we'll see here as far as the autonomic nervous system, right? Oh, excuse me, one moment. So we have a little doggy who likes to communicate with other doggies who are barking outside and as they're doing their walks. I'm sorry, folks. This is hey Kyle. Yeah, this is teaching from home. These kind of things can go on, right? So somatic and autonomic, right? And what's going on as far as what do they both represent, folks? So this is really important as far as the autonomic nervous system is concerned, as far as, all right, so we know somatic, and we covered that. first semester of A&P and looking at contraction of skeletal muscle. Well, what's going on then with autonomic and the whole significance regarding pre and postganglionic neurons and its two synapse system, and what's taking place as far as sympathetic and parasympathetic influence, and if we're affecting one or the other, how can that affect what's going on as far as control of the body and different aspects of the human body and maintaining homeostasis. So is this not like an excellent slide to cover and to look at as far as giving you an overview of these different systems, right? And the one nervous system and the different branches that make up the nervous system, right? So you should be reviewing, right? Sympathetic, parasympathetic, what's making up and comprising these different divisions, okay? What's going on as far as short and long pre and postganglionic neurons, right? We've discussed that, talked about that. What's going on as far as cranial nerves are concerned, right? And what's taking place as far as the role of each. We've discussed that many times, and also the neurotransmitters, folks. So this would be very important. And now that I'm doing things, I'm getting a little warm. So excuse me one moment. Okay, so yeah, so knowing the different the neurotransmitters and the receptors. I turned it too fast. All right, and understanding regarding the neurotransmitters and the receptors, and also alpha and beta, what does that represent? We have here as far as a nice chart giving you, talking to you about the sympathetic and parasympathetic influence. And I said to you that really, if you focus on one, you'll know the other. So if you focus on sympathetic, then you'll have no problem understanding that. That's pretty much no problem knowing what the opposite is, unless there is no innervation of those by parasympathetic. Okay. Let's see here. So, yeah, so reviewing and having a good understanding regarding autonomic and as far as sympathetic and parasympathetic, very important. Good. Let's get to my chart here. Endocrine system, right? So with the endocrine system, so let's look at the endocrine nodes here first. And so as we're looking at this chart, so I'm not going to review or go over this chart, you're going to do that. But you know, you should, just like we've discussed with each chapter in each body system, you should know the different pathologies that I've discussed and talked about here. And so, you know, reviewing these note packets that I've given you all will be very helpful as far as reviewing as far as what's being affected and what's going on regarding the different glands that are producing the specific hormones, and whether we have too much or too little of a hormone, what can happen as far as pathology and illness is concerned. Okay. So, you know, reviewing this, please, reviewing these note packets that I've given you are really important, okay? And so many times with the matching, move this over here, with the matching, that's many times what we're doing as far as these different pathologies and such, okay? As far as the endocrine system is concerned, really, it's simple enough in that it's just there's a lot to know, but it's a matter of that you should have a good working understanding of. So the glands that comprise the system, right? So the endocrine system, the glands that are producing hormones. What hormones are they producing? Where are the target cells for those hormones that are being produced? And what is the action of those hormones? And then as far as pathology, what goes on if we have too much or if we have too little, right? So that's the endocrine system in a nutshell. Now, that being said, right, you understand and you know that there's quite a bit to that, but that's really what our focus is, and really having a good working understanding of the endocrine system, and understand and realize that there are many patients that come into the hospitals, that come into doctors' offices and clinics and such, that are really dealing with major issues with their thyroid gland in particular, and also with their pancreas, as far as with diabetes is one of the #1 endocrine disorder. And it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon, folks. So really the endocrine system and having a good understanding and working knowledge of how this system functions, very important for us as clinicians. So looking at the blood. And before I do that, let's go here to then this Word document here. As far as you're seeing here, as far as the blood disorders and such. So knowing when we have too high number of cells or too low the number of cells, what's going to take place as far as the function of these specific cells, and really the white blood cells we talked more about when we were looking at the immune system and such, and the lymphatic system. But here we have the erythrocytes and what's going on also with platelets and such, as well as the white blood cells regarding whether we have too low levels or too high levels of the leukocytes present. Okay, and then you should also review regarding what's going on as far as clots are concerned. And good enough there. And let's go then to, so having an understanding also regarding what's going on as far as the components of the blood and what's comprised of the plasma, what's present within the plasma. And we talked about as far as plasma proteins and specific functions of these, as far as the functions of the erythrocytes and of the white blood cells, and as far as their specific roles and what takes place regarding clotting of the blood and such, okay, as far as thrombocytes are concerned, platelets. Okay, so reviewing and going over what I put on your review and such will be very important. Let's see here in different, yeah, so. Okay, and I also, let's see here. Okay, yeah, all right, let's go into as far as blood typing and such also. So recall we've spent quite a bit of time in lecture as well as in lab discussing blood typing, and even in the lab portion as far as looking at doing our own using synthetic blood and doing blood typing and determining what's taking place. If we have type A blood, we have type B antibodies, and what's going on as far as with we have an Rh negative or positive and such, and what's taking place with erythroblastosis fetalis as far as issues with mom and child being incompatible as far as the Rh factor is concerned. Okay. And again, we talked about the different pathologies present. And then we get into, let's see here, as far as chapter 14 and cardiovascular, so discussing as far as vasculature as well as the heart and what's going on as far as the valves are concerned, as far as the pumping is concerned, as far as 2 pumps are present within the cardiovascular system. Kyle, cool. Yeah, it's I think that all of us can say that we have different aspects of the human body that we find more fascinating than others. And I would tell you that really, like the nervous system to me, and what I did as a clinician for those years, really I enjoyed learning, and always I listen to podcasts regarding neurology and such. I just find it fascinating and amazing. And so for me, neurology is the thing. But yeah, the cardiovascular system, yeah, very interesting also. And so really important as far as, talking about and understanding regarding pulmonic and systemic circulation and what's taking place as far as the movement of blood throughout the body, the vessels, and as far as, regarding blood pressure and highest blood pressure, lowest blood pressure, what's taking place with blood pressure, what's going on regarding, let's see, as far as congestive heart failure and such. Let's see here. Yep, so a lot of that. Let's see, the valves. Recall again too, closure of the valves. This is what's causing the lub-dub, right? That's the closure of the valves that's creating that noise. It's not the opening and closure of the valves. Closure of those valves. Let's see here. As far as the conductive pathway of the heart, you should know this and not forget this. Okay. As far as fetal development, recall that we talked about two areas in particular as far as the ligamentum arteriosum, right? The connection here between the aorta as well as the pulmonary artery and the aorta. So that ligamentum arteriosum for fetal circulation, it was the ductus arteriosum, and there's an actual pathway, but then that becomes then a ligament over time as far as once the child is born. Also, we talked about the foramen ovale. That's an opening during fetal circulation, and it closes afterwards once the child is born and such. So we talked about that also. Let's see here. ECG, also known as EKG, these different waves and such. And so this is really the primary importance to us here that we've talked about and reviewed. Systolic and diastolic as far as blood pressure, as well as the terms systole and diastole, what do they represent? Talked about the heart sounds. And all right, very good. So we talked about also the different vessels and such, and so you should know and review regarding the significance of the arteries, the veins, the venules, the arterioles, and the capillaries and their specific functions. Then we get to the lymphatic system. And so with the lymphatic system, so really what is the system? What is its significance regarding the immune system, and how do the cardiovascular and the lymphatic system work together in order to create an immune system for the human body, which is a functional system? Discussion of the different components of the lymphatic system as well as lymph, right? And what's going on as far as the vessels are concerned, and as far as drainage into the venous system of the cardiovascular system, okay? And you should know these different terms here that you'll see present as far as what's going on as far as lymph nodes, as far as spleen, the thymus gland, the significance of the mucosa-associated lymphoid tissue, the MALT, present. And see here as far as whether it's encapsulated or non-encapsulated, what's the significance of these fine collagen fibers, these reticular fibers. Okay, and these are just some nice images that are showing you as far as right-sided and left-sided drainage. Here you have as far as the vessels are concerned, and know that they're blind-ended vessels. They're not directly connected to a pump system, right? But they drain into the cardiovascular system, into the venous system in particular. Right? And as far as the filtration of lymph, and what is lymph in particular, and what's going on as far as the lymph nodes are concerned, right? As far as circulation is concerned, and what's going on as far as how that's being maintained. And then also as far as for the thoracic duct and the right lymphatic duct, so right-sided drainage, and left, and really the remainder of the body as far as lower extremities and abdominal pelvic region for the thoracic duct, as far as left side of the body, and head, right, left side, right side for right lymphatic duct. The significance of the thymus gland and the spleen, remembering that the spleen filters blood, the lymph nodes filter the lymph, and the significance of that. And we talked about some pathology also. Now, as we get into then the immune system, excuse me. And so we use terms like non-specific and specific, innate and adaptive. We talked about the different lines of defense, and realizing that just like the nervous system is comprised of different divisions, it's all just the nervous system, right? As far as the immune system, this functional system is concerned, yes, there are multiple lines of defense, but they're all working at the same time in order to work towards the same goal, but having different functions. You'll see here as far as we talked about complement. I mentioned to you this, I talked about regarding what's taking place as far as the specific white blood cells and what types of cells are present, as far as the T and B lymphocytes. We discussed that in quite a bit of detail. TB lymphocytes. You'll see here as far as certain terms you'll need to know and to review and go over. We discussed as far as these different types of antibodies present and what their significance would be. And we talked about active and passive, natural and artificial. And so I've given you a couple of images here too that by studying the images, sometimes that can really help to trigger your memory of the information that you studied. I like this one in particular, but this one is nice and also that it has these images that you can focus on to help you to recall. So what is it meant by natural? What's it meant by artificial? What's meant by active? What's meant by passive? Okay, so very important. You see here the discussion of the specific types of cells present as far as B and T lymphocytes, as well as significance of macrophages and such, and different chemicals, and the importance of the mucous membranes present within the body and surrounding and really allowing for the cavities of the body to be protected and such. We discussed as far as autoimmune disorders are concerned. And you'll see here also that I've given a listing and also showing you that there are different illnesses that we discussed in other chapters and such also as far as the endocrine system is concerned, right? So good stuff, all right? Now, let's move on to the respiratory system. And as far as respiratory is concerned, so let's look at this one is a very short as far as a short packet here, only a few pages, right? But really the significance of what's going on as far as the events of respiration. So ventilation, external, internal respiration, the movement of gases in the cardiovascular system and going from the and taking place from the lungs to the blood, and then going from the blood to the cells and tissues of the body. So how are these all taking place and what's going on as far as we have here Boyle's law and how are volume and pressure related, right? And you'll see there, and you can look at that there and review that, and really very important, okay? And how are gases moving in and out of the human respiratory system, okay? So please, you know, those notes are very important. It can really be a nice adjunct to what we're focusing on as far as the PowerPoints are concerned. And with the part 2 of the respiratory notes, you'll see here as far as there is some discussion regarding the volumes and the capacities and how the capacities are comprised of the volumes. We have here as far as terminology regarding non-respiratory air movements, gas movements, as well as what's taking place as far as pathology is concerned. And so always a review of pathology and understanding of what's going on with the system is very important, okay? Again, too, because really when you have patients coming into your clinics, into your, as you're experiencing patient care, whatever that may be for however you are doing your job and your role, playing your role within healthcare, these patients are going to be coming in experiencing all of these different types of pathologies and illnesses and such. And so you should have a good working understanding of what's going on and why we are treating patients in such and such a way in order to help them, whether it's treat an acute illness or treat and provide supportive care or maintain what's going on with patients that suffer from chronic illnesses. And let's see here, as far as the respiratory notes here, right? So just reviewing and going over regarding what's going on as far as the structures and such. So there'll always be interspersed with the physiology questions, anatomy questions, anatomical questions regarding the different body systems and such. And here's the larynx and what's taking place as far as your ability to produce speech, sound, phonation. Here's the epiglottis, that significant portion of the respiratory system and protection of any type of aspirating liquids or food into the respiratory system. Here we have an understanding and picture image regarding your alveoli and what's going on as far as this is where gas exchange takes place, right? Via diffusion. All right, so and I covered a lot of information in my note packet also with that. So then we go to the digestive system. Nope. Excuse me one moment, folks. Okay, so we always have our doors are open and closing throughout the Perron household, very busy. So you'll see here as far as the digestive system is concerned. So my note packet, again, very important as far as a review. And this note packet here, it contains quite a bit of information. And so really this is you in conjunction with your PowerPoint, looking at as far as images are concerned, we have here, you should know these terminology, right? So what's taking place with all of these aspects of what's taking place within the digestive system, as far as movement of material. Ah, cool. Here we go, Norma, right? Yeah, and understand, and I was just discussing with a student earlier today regarding her career choice towards getting into becoming a dietitian and such, and really the importance of nutrition for our patients as far as I really believe that food can be medicine and food can be helpful and working in conjunction with medicine. Don't get me wrong, right? I don't say, oh, just no medicine. That's foolishness, right? That would be ridiculous. But to say that in working in conjunction with different treatments and such, can't we make sure that we adjust the diet in order to help our patients? Absolutely, we get this, we know this. And so the importance and significance of the digestive system and taking in proper nutrition and health and you know, working with patients who have different issues that can be affected with the digestive system and their food intake, you know, huge, big deal, as well as sadly, unfortunately, the epidemic of obesity within our country and such and throughout the world. So let's see here as far as, so we're talking about different aspects of as far as the structural components of the digestive system, the alimentary canal, and as far as what's taking place in each of these sections, right? As far as what's going on as far as nervous system influence of the digestive system important. Here you're seeing here as far as the tongue is concerned, as far as the saliva, right? As far as the dentition is concerned and the different structures here, we had that on our practical exam, right? And as far as the throat is concerned, and just really understanding that you should be able to go through the system, so from the oral cavity to the anus, and have that good working understanding of what's taking place throughout each of these areas as far as different enzymes and secretions that are taking place and what's producing them and what's their role as far as in the digestion of nutrients and such, okay? So all provided for you, and you know, be able to help you out here with that. Again, neural components and different aspects of the components of the digestive system. So what are each structures that are present within the tube, right, from the oral cavity to the anus, and what's other structures are contributing to, like the gallbladder and the liver and such, and the pancreas. And so what are they all contributing, and how are they all being a part of the ability to digest nutrients and break them down and absorb them and such. So very important, right? And we did discuss even a little bit as far as some pathologies and such, and we talked about anything from fecal transplants to C. diff infections that are associated with, unfortunately, those patients that are suffering with very severe cases of diarrhea. And here are some other issues as far as illnesses are concerned, right? Very good. And then getting into the urinary system. So remember that the urinary system, the reproductive system, these are new material that's being added, that has been put on the final exam that wasn't tested on in test number 4, so that there'll be a few more additional questions regarding these systems. And as far as how many, I can't tell you. I didn't study, but I just know that there's more information there. And so let's look at as far as the urinary system notes. And the significance of, the urinary system is taking filtration of blood, creating a filtrate, removing water, removing other ions and such, and placing within the filtrate, which will become urine, products that we're wanting to leave the body and such, right? So products primarily of protein metabolism, but other products also. So, knowing as far as the nephron, what's the significance of that? There are 2 different types of nephrons, and we looked at that in the lab and also seen that in as far as our notes in the PowerPoint. And I provided images for them and what's going on. So this is a really a crucial little bit of information right here. So it's filtration, reabsorption, and secretion. This is how we form urine. This is how it's produced and then released from the body via micturition, urination, voiding, right? And so what's happening and what are components as far as ADH, what's going on as far as atrionatropathic peptides, as far as ANP, produced by the right atrium. What's going on as far as other hormones, as far as, let's see, aldosterone. So the significance of these hormones and how they're affecting the ability to absorb or not absorb substances and create a really a concentrated urine. Okay? Okay, so you see here, yes, area AMP and aldosterone and ADH, so EPO, right? And the different illnesses that accompany a lack of function of the kidneys and what's going on with those, right? We discussed these in detail and looked at them, talking about dialysis and what's taking place with that and different types, right? And as far as your ability to actually, the nervous system working in conjunction with the urinary system in order to have that control over whether when we feel the need to void. And we talked about, as far as young children are concerned and their ability and when they're able to do this, as far as learn this this ability to be able to control their ability to void. The nephron. So I did not ask you regarding telling me each area, what's going on as far as, yes, I made mention of, and we showed and provided for you this image here and such, but really I want you to know as a general overview, what's taking place as far as proximal convoluted tubule, distal convoluted tubule, entering into the collecting duct, and what's taking place as far as the nephron loop. So just have a general idea as far as you'll see here, as far as the descending limb, we're reabsorbing water, right? As far as where's this water going to go into, right? So it's going out of the filtrate and into the cardiovascular system and into being reabsorbed back into the blood, cardiovascular system. And you'll see here that water's not moving on the ascending limb, but we have here other ions and such, so sodium and chloride ions that are moving, right? And again, we're ending up with at the renal papilla. This is where we're draining into the, as far as the minor calyx, which will drain, the minor calyces will drain into the major calyces and then into the renal pelvis and exit via the ureters into the urinary bladder. Okay. All right, very good. And let's see here as far as, and so we have in conjunction with the notes there, the PowerPoint, and providing you with images and such, as well as information regarding. And here we have, as far as you'll see here, the 2 different types of, as far as the cortical and juxtaglomerular nephrons, such, right? So the cortical, primarily most of the components of the nephron are present within the cortex of the kidneys. And knowing so you have here the cortex, you have here the medullary region, you'll have here the renal papilla with the calyces. Again, the drainage of the urine into this region here, this collection area, and then exiting via the ureters. Okay. Here's just another image and showing you that. So again, too, you're seeing here as far as the different types of, just another image showing you the different types of nephrons, as well as seeing here as far as that there is a network of capillaries that are covering and allowing for then the movement of materials back and forth between this tubular network of the nephron, eventually draining the filtrate into the collecting ducts, right? So very important there. And so really, like, you should know what's taking place as far as this should just be, you should have this memorized as far as what's going on as far as the movement of blood, and not only just where you can see as far as, but also what's taking place as far as microscopically. So macroscopically, we can view in the lab and we've seen in the lab, and then microscopically what's taking place as far as the vasculature is concerned. And here we have, as far as looking at the renal corpuscle. So we have the renal corpuscle is comprised of the glomerulus, this knot of capillaries, encompassed by the glomerular capsule, also known as Bowman's capsule, right? So you'll see there as far as that's concerned, and very good as far as here you're seeing, this is a, so would this be a male or female? We know it's a male because there's a prostate gland here. And so you'll see here as far as the significance of issues with the prostate gland, how that can affect as far as benign prostatic hypertrophy, so enlargement of the prostate gland, and how that can affect the movement of urine from the urinary bladder through the urethra and out of the whether it's the penis for the male or for the female, just the urethra itself. And as far as the let's see here, yeah, as far as what's going on with that. So very good. Let's now look at the reproductive system. And we spent time looking at two different evenings, looking at the male and female reproductive system. Let's close this out. And here we have as far as for both systems, right? So for both systems, I placed this information here in the beginning regarding the gonads, regarding the gametes, regarding what's taking place as far as chromosome numbers, as far as haploid and diploid, diploid are concerned, right? As far as the production, the formation of the zygote as an end result of fertilization, right? Remember that for both reproductive systems, as far as male and female, there's a tubular network also present, allowing for the movement of the gametes so that they can allow for then the eventual outcome, hopefully, would be fertilization of the gametes produced by the gonads, and then implantation would occur within the uterus for the fertilized egg. Right? And so we'll look here as far as the male is concerned, and so the different ducts and what's taking place within these DUCTSs, right, ducts, as far as these tubes, and what's going on as far as issues like cryptorchidism, right? And also what's going on as far as the musculature is concerned, maintaining a proper temperature control of the testes. And you'll see here as far as what's taking place as far as spermatogenesis, the significance of the blood-testis barrier, hormones that are present and that will influence what's taking place as far as spermatogenesis is concerned, as well as the anatomy of the sperm, okay, and the different erectile tissues, and the secretions that are being released within the ejaculate, as far as the seminal vesicles, as far as the Cowper's glands, as far as the prostate gland is concerned. Okay. Okay. And then here we also at the end of both note packets there, as far as for male and female, we talked about as far as secondary sex characteristics. So you should review and know those also, please. As far as female reproductive system, so we're looking at, so this is going to repeat until we get to more specific here. And again, talking about the different components and what's taking place in these different tubes and structures present within the female reproductive system. And you'll see here as far as so, and then let's really just scoot right to this image right here. And I provided also on the PowerPoint other images, but this is such a great image. And there's another one very similar to this in the PowerPoint packet, and talking about the ovarian and the uterine cycles, and then having an understanding and realizing that what's taking place as far as the spiking of certain hormones, and then what happens when the dropping of certain hormones dramatically, right? And so really knowing what's going on as far as both different cycles, and as far as what's taking place as far as time periods and such, and what can vary or not vary. Terms like menarche and menopause. Okay. Very important, and also review regarding a little bit as far as breast cancer is concerned, pathology. Okay, so, and then really as far as focusing on this this PowerPoint here and looking and seeing that we have multiple images are provided and help you to get a good understanding as far as just not only understanding as far as, so like in significance here, as far as recall, we looked at like how long the epididymis really is, this coiled up structure where maturation of the sperm and really a holding place for the sperm is until ejaculation can occur, regarding the contraction of the ductus deferens, aka also known as the vas deferens. Here as far as the anatomy of the sperm itself. And nice image here regarding and showing you regarding as far as development of and maturation of the ovum and its release upon, you'll see here as far as ovulation is concerned, and what's left as far as the yellow body and the white body and what those terms are referring to. Here's just another image with that. And then here we have, and this is really nice also, just giving you another image regarding what's taking place as far as the follicular phase and then the secretory phase, the luteal phase is concerned. Very good. Okay, and then I gave you some information regarding, and I'm not going to ask you regarding the STDs, STIs that I recall. Let me just confirm that, right? Because I think I mentioned that to you not to have to worry about that. Yeah. Oh, well, I did have it. No, excuse me one moment. Let me just review. I'm just making sure regarding that. Yeah. Okay. All right, folks, very good. So that's it regarding our review.